How did COVID reshape retail and goods production? Our chief equity strategist and economist, John Blank, is going to fill us in on that now. John, to put some context to this conversation, how many retail establishments are there here in the U.S.?
4 million, Terry, around 4 million.
And that number covers all types of retail, is that correct?
That covers everything: bookstores, big box stores, restaurants, grocery stores, everything.
And retail sales, by way of some background, in March of 2020 fell, but now we're seeing a pickup in monthly sales activity. And does that cut across all retail?
Well, yes, the answer is yes. And this is why I wrote this piece. In fact, retail sales relative to pre-COVID times is 18% higher overall. So retail itself within the U.S. economy is about 20% of the country's economy. So this part of the story needs to be understood. There has been, and in the terms of categories, there's been only rises in all categories of retail spending, obviously led by online retail spending, but the grocery stores are strong, the general merchandise stores are strong, the auto dealers, used parts dealers, used car dealers, everything is strong. The only thing, Terry, that has gone sideways is electronics stores, because people are already staffed up by this point in time with any online needs for screens and stuff like that. But the point is, retail sales activity in a COVID environment, goods sales goes up 18 to 20%. This is basically in hindsight. Don't criticize anybody. Nobody ever went through a COVID pandemic to know this, but now we know this.
So what's the primary driver?
Well, that's kind of where I think I just led you to. I think it actually is COVID. Now, why does this matter? Because the other primary driver could be the stimulus checks and the generous unemployment benefits from the government. The reason I don't think that, Terry, is when I look at the spiking in retail spending, for example, grocery stores spiked at the outcome of the shutdown and never went down. So that's clearly related to COVID shutdowns and getting your groceries. And then if you look into vaccination, when the vaccination drive hit, that is when general merchandise stores and used car dealers and on new car dealers spiked too. So if you want to be precise based on the facts, the primary drivers have been shutdowns first and then vaccination second, and then the ongoing concern everybody has with contacting the unvaccinated, which in some sense is just a smaller mentality that circles around the shutdown, because at that point you were trying to stay away from everybody. After vaccination, you're just trying to stay away from the unvaccinated. So the point is, as long as COVID was the primary driver and remains the primary driver, these retail sales stay elevated. And why does this matter? Because we can't actually blame the Fed or the US government for COVID. And if that's the primary driver, then this is a shift that's with us for years.
So something we can all identify with: groceries. How does consumers purchasing larger quantities, especially of groceries at the grocery store, factor into this?
Well, first of all, we all knew people were hoarding toilet paper in particular. But what we've seen now is that people are now doing Costco runs and larger purchases for their families and taking advantage of discounts. So this is an example where one set of early factors lead into a change in behavior. And now everybody actually is buying more quantities at discount stores at this point in the pandemic. They have shifted their behavior.
Okay, so is consumers' change in those spending habits here to stay going forward?
Well, this gets to all these questions about inflation and supply chains and everything. Here to stay is probably too strong, because at some point the COVID pandemic's memory will fade from the screen. But it is clearly not the case for the next year or two that COVID is going to fade from people's minds. So I think the point is, this whole concept that this is a transitory exit from COVID has been misplaced. It is a 4 or 5 year long period of time for goods production.
What was the big change in consumer goods production that was caused by COVID?
Well, basically, Terry, people started ordering goods or getting goods out of stores more often, and that stimulated the global supply chains, which all then had to come through the ports And this is the big issue: is the port delivery bottlenecks became enormous, as well as trucking bottlenecks. So the point is, if you try to push more goods down the same pipe, you'll get a blockage.
According to published reports, supply chain disruptions globally are causing retailers to over-order merchandise for their stock. Speaking of over-ordering and buying, do you see that making things even worse, especially as we get into the holiday shopping season? Is that a wild card?
Well, what's going on here is their inventories are extremely depleted already. So their over-ordering is just trying to fill inventories to the levels they used to be at. So this problem's with us for 6 months, Terry, I think, at least.
All right. Well, there's a lot more here to talk about. We've only just scratched the surface. It's an interesting conversation here. But right now, let's take a look at a few top retail stocks that include Walmart, Kroger, and Williams-Sonoma.
Yeah, Walmart obviously is your big discount store. What people need to understand is they also have a very strong online arm. This stock has actually lagged most of this year. So Goldman put it on its conviction buy list a couple of weeks ago. You got to like Walmart at this point in time, particularly when Goldman gets behind it. Kroger, ticker KR. I mean, this is a grocery store. What I'm here to tell you is that grocery store purchases are more sustainable over a longer period of time than you might think. As a value pick in a value portfolio, you can look at Kroger. The final one, Williams-Sonoma. This ticker has been beating on earnings in giant strides. It's one of the top online retail plays in the United States. The only issue you have with Williams-Sonoma is everybody has picked over this play. But again, as a name in a portfolio, high-quality name, you've got to like Williams-Sonoma.
All right, our chief equity strategist and economist, John Blank, keying in on COVID's impact on retail for us. With John, I'm Terry Ruffalo. And by the way, here is a just-released report that you may want to take a look at. 5 stocks set to double, where 4 Zacks experts each announced their single favorite pick with a potential to gain 100% and more in the months ahead. Download that private special report that names these stocks and spotlights why their upside is so exceptional at Zacks.com/promo.
This material is being provided for informational purposes only, and nothing herein constitutes investment, legal, accounting, or tax advice, or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold a security. Do not act or rely upon the information and advice given in this podcast without seeking the services of competent and professional legal, tax, or accounting counsel. Publication and distribution of this podcast is not intended to create, and the information contained herein does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. No recommendation or advice is being given as to whether any investment or strategy is suitable for a particular investor. It should not be assumed that any investments in securities, companies, sectors, or markets identified and described were or will be profitable. All information is current as of the date herein and is subject to change without notice. Any views or opinions expressed may not reflect those of Zacks Investment Research as a whole.